The sands of the Egyptian Valley of the Kings had hidden their secrets for over 3,000 years when, in November of 1922, a determined British archaeologist named Howard Carter made a discovery that would rewrite history and spawn one of the century's most enduring legends. Carter, funded by his wealthy patron Lord Carnarvon, had spent years searching for the lost tomb of a relatively minor pharaoh named Tutankhamun. Where other archaeologists had dismissed the possibility of finding anything significant in the largely excavated valley, Carter remained convinced that one tomb still lay hidden beneath the debris. His persistence was about to pay off in ways nobody could have imagined, uncovering not just golden treasures, but a mystery that would captivate the world for generations to come. The story begins on November 4th, 1922, when Carter's workers uncovered a step cut into the bedrock. As they carefully cleared away centuries of sand and rubble, a staircase emerged, leading to a sealed doorway bearing the name of Tutankhamun. Immediately, Carter sent a telegram to Lord Carnarvon, who rushed from England to witness what would become the most significant archaeological find of the century. On November 26th, with Carnarvon present, Carter made a small hole in the second sealed doorway and held a candle to the opening. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, Carnarvon anxiously asked, "Can you see anything?" Carter famously replied, "Yes, wonderful things." This understated response marked the beginning of an encounter that would transform our understanding of ancient Egypt and unleash a wave of mystery that continues to this day. Before them lay an antechamber filled with a breathtaking collection of artifacts: elaborate golden beds, intricately carved chairs, stunning jewelry, alabaster vessels, and statues of gods and goddesses. Unlike any other royal tomb discovered previously, this one appeared largely intact, though there were signs that ancient grave robbers had entered shortly after burial. The real marvel, however, lay beyond: a sealed doorway guarded by two life-size statues of the king himself. This door would later lead to the burial chamber, containing the stone sarcophagus of Tutankhamun, within which lay three nested coffins, the innermost made of solid gold and containing the mummified body of the young pharaoh, his face covered by the now iconic golden death mask. The discovery was unprecedented, offering the first-ever glimpse of an essentially intact pharaonic burial with all its magnificent funerary goods. The timing of this discovery proved crucial to the legend that would follow. The world of the 1920s was still reeling from the trauma of World War I and the recent influenza pandemic. People lived in an era fascinated by spiritualism and the supernatural, where the boundaries between science and mystery often blurred. When the spectacular finds from Tutankhamun's tomb were published in newspapers worldwide, the public imagination was set ablaze. Here was a tangible connection to a civilization that had flourished millennia ago, preserved almost perfectly, and speaking of beliefs about death and the afterlife that both fascinated and unnerved modern sensibilities. The stage was set for something extraordinary to capture the public's attention, and that something would soon arrive in the form of mysterious deaths and whispers of an ancient curse. The atmosphere during the excavation added to the growing mystique. According to some accounts, a canary belonging to Carter was eaten by a cobra on the day the tomb was opened. To the Egyptian workers, this was deeply symbolic. The cobra was a protector of pharaohs, and its appearance signified the displeasure of the gods. Howard Carter himself seemed to encourage the idea of supernatural forces at work, possibly to deter thieves and unwanted visitors from interfering with his precious find. He spoke of strange and marvelous magic surrounding the tomb, and noted unusual signs and omens. Little did he know that these initial superstitions would soon escalate into a full-blown legend that would overshadow even the magnificent archaeological discovery itself. The excitement of the discovery was soon tempered by tragedy. Lord Carnarvon, the financial backer whose support had made the discovery possible, would become the curse's most famous victim. In March 1923, just months after the official opening of the burial chamber, Carnarvon fell ill. He had accidentally nicked a mosquito bite while shaving, leading to an infection that developed into blood poisoning. In an era before antibiotics, his condition rapidly deteriorated, and on April 5, 1923, he died in Cairo at the age of 56. The circumstances of his death were unusual enough, but what happened next would transform this personal tragedy into an international sensation and give birth to the legend of the mummy's curse that we know today. Are you fascinated by the mysterious secrets of ancient civilizations? Don't miss our deep dive into history's greatest unsolved mysteries. Subscribe to our channel for more captivating content. The death of Lord Carnarvon served as the catalyst for what would become known as the Curse of the Pharaohs. The press, particularly British and American newspapers, seized upon the story with sensational headlines suggesting supernatural retribution for disturbing the eternal rest of an Egyptian king. The legend gained further traction when it was reported that at the exact moment of Carnarvon's death, the lights throughout Cairo mysteriously failed, plunging the city into darkness. Back in England, Carnarvon's beloved dog was said to have let out a mournful howl and dropped dead at precisely 2 o'clock in the morning, the time of her master's passing. These stories, whether factual or fabricated, captured the public imagination and set the pattern for what was to follow. Soon, other individuals connected with the tomb began to die under unusual circumstances, adding fuel to the curse narrative. American railroad magnate George J. Gould, who had visited the tomb early in 1923, fell ill almost immediately afterward and died of pneumonia in the French Riviera on May 16, 1923. Prince Ali Kamel Fahmy Bey of Egypt, who had also toured the tomb, was shot dead by his wife Marguerite in a London hotel on July 10, 1923. British industrialist Joel Wool, another visitor to the site, died of a fever allegedly contracted in Egypt in 1924. Each new death was eagerly reported by the press as further evidence of the curse's power, with the list of alleged victims growing steadily longer in the years following the discovery. Perhaps one of the most chilling stories involved Howard Carter's friend, Sir Bruce Ingham. Carter had presented Ingham with a macabre gift, a mummified hand bearing a bracelet supposedly inscribed with the phrase, "Cursed be he who moves my body." According to legend, Ingham's house subsequently burned to the ground under mysterious circumstances, and when he attempted to rebuild, the property was destroyed by flooding. Whether this story is true or merely apocryphal, it perfectly illustrates the atmosphere of supernatural fear that surrounded any association with the tomb and its artifacts. The message was clear: not even those who received gifts from the excavators were safe from the pharaoh's wrath. The curse seemed to extend its reach to those with even tangential connections to the excavation. Aubrey Herbert, Lord Carnarvon's half-brother, suffered from a progressive eye condition that had left him completely blind. In a desperate attempt to restore his sight, he had all his teeth extracted in the belief that focal sepsis might be affecting his vision. The procedure failed, and Herbert died of sepsis from the dental surgery on September 26, 1923, just 5 months after his brother's death. Though his health problems predated the tomb's discovery, his death was nevertheless attributed to the expanding curse. Similarly, Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, the radiologist who X-rayed Tutankhamun's mummy before it was transferred to the Cairo Museum, fell ill the following day and died unexpectedly 3 days later under mysterious circumstances. The psychological toll on those associated with the excavation became increasingly evident as the death toll mounted. Aubrey Evelyn White, a British archaeologist who had participated in the excavations, witnessed the deaths of nearly 20 dozen of his colleagues by 1924. Overwhelmed by what he perceived as an inescapable curse, he took his own life. Before his death, he allegedly wrote a message in his own blood: "I have succumbed to a curse which forces me to disappear." This tragic event added a new dimension to the curse narrative. It wasn't just causing physical illnesses, but was now driving people to take their own lives through sheer psychological terror. American Egyptologist Aaron Ember was another victim added to the curse's roster. Ember,
who was friends with many of the members of the excavation team, died in 1926 when his house in Baltimore burned down just hours after he and his wife hosted a dinner party. Though his wife and their maid managed to save their son and escape the blaze, Ember himself perished while trying to salvage a manuscript he had been working on, ironically titled The Egyptian Book of the Dead. The dramatic symbolism of his death while trying to save a work about ancient Egyptian funerary practices was too tempting for the press to ignore, and his name was promptly added to the growing list of the curse's victims. By the late 1920s, the curse had allegedly claimed more than 20 lives, with Richard Bethel, Carter's secretary, and the first person to enter the tomb after him, being found dead under suspicious circumstances in 1929. Bethel was discovered smothered in his room at an exclusive London gentleman's club, with a series of mysterious fires having previously broken out in his home where some of Tutankhamun's artifacts were stored. Though no direct connection was ever established between the artifacts and his death, the media and public imagination had no doubt the curse was still active, hunting down anyone who had dared violate the sacred resting place of the boy king. In the midst of all these mysterious deaths, one figure stood out for his conspicuous survival: Howard Carter himself, the man who had led the excavation and personally supervised the dismantling of the burial. Despite being at the center of the excavation and handling the mummy and artifacts directly, Carter lived for another 17 years after the tomb's opening, eventually dying of lymphoma at the age of 64 in 1939. His longevity amidst the falling bodies of his colleagues remains one of the curse's most intriguing paradoxes. If you're enjoying this journey into one of history's greatest mysteries, why not join our community of curious minds? Hit that subscribe button and never miss an exploration into the unknown.
The so-called Curse of Tutankhamun did not emerge spontaneously from the sands of Egypt, but was carefully constructed and amplified by various forces with their own motivations and agendas. Understanding how this legend took hold requires examining the media landscape of the 1920s and the individuals who shaped the narrative. The world was entering a new era of mass communication, with newspapers reaching wider audiences than ever before, and the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb provided perfect fodder for sensational journalism. The public's appetite for stories about the mysterious East, ancient civilizations, and the supernatural was insatiable, and the press was more than willing to feed it. One key figure in propagating the curse narrative was Arthur Weigall, a former Egyptologist who served as a correspondent for the Daily Mail. Weigall had a complicated relationship with both Carnarvon and Carter, stemming from professional rivalries and the fact that Carnarvon had granted exclusive reporting rights to the Times, leaving other newspapers scrambling for alternative angles. Weigall began reporting on various strange occurrences and coincidences surrounding the excavation, including the story of Carter's canary being eaten by a cobra. He was also the first to note the scar on Carnarvon's cheek from a mosquito bite, later suggesting it resembled a wound on Tutankhamun's mummy. Though Weigall himself claimed not to believe in the curse, his reports effectively planted the idea in the public consciousness. The literary world also played a significant role in popularizing the curse. Perhaps the most influential voice was that of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes and a devoted spiritualist. Upon hearing of Carnarvon's death, Doyle publicly declared that elementals created by ancient Egyptian priests to guard the tomb were responsible. He explained that these non-human entities could inflict harm through supernatural means, and their power should not be underestimated. Doyle's status as a famous writer and intellectual gave his pronouncements considerable weight, and his endorsement of the curse theory significantly boosted its credibility among the educated classes. His reputation as the creator of the supremely logical Sherlock Holmes created an interesting paradox. Here was the author of rational deduction advocating for supernatural explanations. Another literary figure who contributed to the curse narrative was Marie Corelli, a popular English novelist known for her occult and romantic fiction.
Just 2 weeks before Carnarvon's death, Corelli had published a story mentioning a curse that would befall anyone who entered a pharaoh's tomb. After Carnarvon died, she claimed to have warned him about the dangers in a personal letter, though this was never verified. Corelli's novels often featured supernatural elements and ancient mysteries, and her public statements about the curse were widely reported, adding to the growing media frenzy. Her involvement demonstrated how fiction and reality were becoming dangerously blurred in the public mind. The timing of the tomb's discovery coincided with a period of heightened interest in spiritualism and the occult, particularly in Europe and America. The trauma of World War I had left millions grieving for lost loved ones, leading many to seek comfort in spiritualism and belief in an afterlife. In this context, the idea that ancient Egyptians, renowned for their obsession with death and the afterlife, could project their power across millennia resonated deeply with a public already inclined to believe in supernatural phenomena. The curse tapped into this cultural moment, offering a seemingly real-world validation of beliefs about the permeability between the worlds of the living and the dead. Newspapers competed with increasingly sensational headlines as each new death occurred. The Philadelphia Inquirer reportedly coined the specific phrase "King Tut's curse," while other publications offered increasingly elaborate theories about how the curse operated. Some suggested that toxic substances had been placed in the tomb, while others proposed that ancient Egyptian magic could harness spiritual forces. The fact that many of those who died were wealthy or aristocratic added a layer of class dynamics to the coverage, with some outlets subtly suggesting that the curse targeted the privileged classes who had appropriated Egypt's heritage. This narrative resonated in a world still grappling with the aftermath of war and the inequalities that had caused it. The media frenzy reached such heights that even political figures took notice. Benito Mussolini, then rising to power in Italy, reportedly ordered the immediate removal of an Egyptian mummy from the Palazzo Chigi in Rome after learning of Carnarvon's death. This reaction from a world leader demonstrated how thoroughly the curse narrative had penetrated the highest levels of society. The story was no longer just tabloid fodder, but was being taken seriously by powerful individuals who presumably had access to better information than the general public. Such reactions lent further credibility to the curse in the eyes of many. Howard Carter himself contributed to the mystery, though his motivations were likely practical rather than mystical. Evidence suggests that Carter may have actively encouraged stories about the curse as a means of protecting the tomb from potential thieves and unwanted interference. With priceless treasures being removed from the burial chamber, security was a genuine concern, and the fear of supernatural retribution could serve as an effective deterrent to would-be robbers. Carter also had a contentious relationship with the Egyptian authorities, and the curse narrative may have provided him with leverage during negotiations over access and control of the artifacts. Whatever his intentions, his occasional ambiguous statements about unusual occurrences around the tomb only added fuel to the fire. By the late 1920s, the Curse of Tutankhamun had become firmly established in popular culture, transcending its origins as a media sensation to become a genuine cultural phenomenon. The concept would inspire numerous works of fiction, films, and eventually television shows, cementing the image of the vengeful mummy in the public imagination. The fact that the original archaeological discovery had been genuinely significant was almost overshadowed by the legend that grew around it. The curse had taken on a life of its own, independent of the facts, and would continue to fascinate generations who knew little about the actual historical figure of Tutankhamun, but everything about the supposed supernatural forces that protected his rest.
As the 20th century progressed and scientific understanding advanced, researchers began to subject the Curse of Tutankhamun to rigorous analysis. The results would systematically dismantle the supernatural explanations, replacing them with rational theories based on biology, statistics, and historical context. The first major point undermining the curse narrative was the simple fact that Howard Carter, the man most directly involved with the excavation and handling of the mummy, lived for nearly 2 decades after the tomb's opening and died of natural causes at age 64. If a vengeful pharaoh's curse existed, why would it spare the very archaeologist who violated the sacred burial while claiming the lives of so many others with more peripheral connections? Statistical analysis would further undermine the curse theory. In 2002, a comprehensive study examined the survival rates of Westerners who had been present at the tomb's opening. The research found no significant correlation between exposure to the tomb and reduced life expectancy. There were no signs that those supposedly cursed were more likely to die within 10 years of the excavation than their counterparts who had not been involved. In fact, the average life expectancy after the tomb's opening for those allegedly affected by the curse was 23 years, a figure that compared favorably with general population statistics for the era. This data directly contradicted the notion of a supernatural force cutting lives short. The biological explanation for the alleged curse has gained considerable scientific support over the decades. When the tomb was sealed, organic materials, including food, perfumes, and mummified remains, were placed inside to accompany the pharaoh to the afterlife. Over 3 millennia, these materials likely developed dangerous molds and bacteria that thrived in the dark, sealed environment. Modern research has identified several potentially deadly microorganisms that can survive in tombs for centuries. Aspergillus niger, a black mold known to cause severe respiratory illness or even death in people with compromised immune systems, has been found in other Egyptian tombs and may have been present in Tutankhamun's burial chamber. The case of Lord Carnarvon's death provides compelling evidence for the biological theory. Carnarvon had pre-existing respiratory problems following a near-fatal car accident years before the Egyptian expedition. His weakened lungs would have been particularly vulnerable to pathogens stirred up when the tomb was opened. His death from blood poisoning following an infected mosquito bite, while potentially coincidental, may also have been complicated by an underlying respiratory infection contracted in the tomb. The recent analysis by the Institute for the Preservation of Medical Traditions and Harvard University identified that the dark spots on the tomb walls were concentrations of bacteria that could cause severe respiratory distress if inhaled. Another scientific theory suggests that the ancient Egyptians may have intentionally placed toxic substances in the tombs to protect them from desecration. While no direct evidence of this practice has been found in Tutankhamun's tomb, researchers have identified potentially hazardous materials in other burial contexts. Some archaeologists have speculated that radioactive elements might have been incorporated into tomb structures, either naturally occurring or intentionally included, though this remains speculative. More plausibly, the accumulation of ammonia gas, hydrogen sulfide, and formaldehyde from decaying organic matter could have created a toxic atmosphere within the sealed chambers, particularly dangerous when first opened after millennia. The psychological dimension of the curse cannot be overlooked. The power of suggestion, combined with the already mysterious and evocative setting of ancient Egyptian tombs, likely played a significant role in the perceived curse. Once the idea of a curse was planted in the public mind through media reports, any unusual death or misfortune among those connected to the tomb was interpreted through this lens. This phenomenon, known as confirmation bias, causes people to notice and remember information that confirms their pre-existing beliefs while ignoring contradictory evidence. The human mind naturally seeks patterns and connections, even where none exist, making it susceptible to curse narratives. Modern archaeological practices have implemented safety measures that indirectly support the biological explanation. Today, archaeologists working in sealed tombs and burial chambers frequently wear protective masks and clothing, not out of fear of ancient curses, but to guard against potentially harmful microorganisms. Some excavations even use mobile laboratories to analyze air quality and detect pathogens before permitting extended human exposure. These precautions acknowledge the very real, if non-supernatural, dangers that can lurk in ancient sealed spaces, validating the experiences of early Egyptologists while providing a rational framework for understanding them. The collective weight of scientific evidence has largely debunked the supernatural aspects of the Curse of Tutankhamun, yet the legend persists in popular culture. This endurance speaks not to its factual basis, but to its psychological and cultural power. The rational explanations, biological contaminants, statistical coincidences, media sensationalism, and psychological suggestion, although supported by evidence, lack the dramatic appeal of a supernatural vengeance story spanning millennia. The curse continues to capture our imagination because it touches on deep-seated human fears about death, the past, and the unknown, proving that some mysteries remain compelling even after they've been scientifically explained.
While the curse legend has dominated popular understanding, the true significance of Tutankhamun's discovery lies in its revolutionary impact on Egyptology and our understanding of ancient Egyptian civilization. When Howard Carter first peered into the tomb and saw wonderful things, he was gazing upon the most complete collection of royal burial goods ever discovered from ancient Egypt. The over 5,000 artifacts found within the tomb's 4 small chambers provided an unprecedented window into the material culture, religious beliefs, and funerary practices of the New Kingdom period. Each object, from the golden sarcophagus to the humble reed baskets, told a story about life and death in one of history's most fascinating civilizations. The discovery fundamentally transformed our understanding of Egyptian royal burials. Prior to 1922, knowledge of pharaonic burial practices came primarily from fragmented remains and tomb reliefs. Tutankhamun's intact burial provided the first comprehensive view of how a pharaoh was prepared for the afterlife. The intricate mested shrines and coffins demonstrated the theological complexity of the journey to the underworld, while the everyday objects, including clothing, games, food, and wine, revealed the human side of the divine kings. This single discovery provided a template for understanding the fragmentary remains from other royal tombs that had been looted in antiquity. Tutankhamun himself emerged from obscurity to become one of history's most recognizable figures. Before Carter's discovery, the boy king was virtually unknown, mentioned only briefly in Egyptian records. His historical significance lies in his role during a turbulent period of Egyptian history. Tutankhamun came to the throne around the age of 8 or 9, following the controversial reign of his father, Akhenaten, who had attempted to replace traditional Egyptian polytheism with worship of a single god, the Aten. Tutankhamun's reign marked a return to orthodox religion and the restoration of the old gods. The artifacts in his tomb reflect this theological restoration, blending traditional motifs with lingering influences from the Amarna period. Modern scientific analysis of Tutankhamun's mummy has revealed fascinating details about his life, health, and possible causes of death. CT scans conducted in 2005 showed that the king was approximately 19 years old when he died, stood about 5 feet 6 inches tall, and had a slightly cleft palate and an overbite. His remains indicate he suffered from several health challenges, including Kohler's disease, which would have caused necrosis in the bones of his left foot, potentially causing him pain and requiring him to walk with a cane. The presence of over 130 walking sticks in his tomb supports this diagnosis. These findings humanize the mysterious pharaoh, transforming him into a legendary figure, into a real person who lived with physical challenges. The cause of Tutankhamun's death remains uncertain, though several theories have emerged. Early speculation focused on murder, citing a possible blow to the head, but more recent analysis suggests this damage likely occurred post-mortem. Current theories include complications from a broken leg that became infected, possibly occurring during a chariot accident. Malaria parasites were also discovered in his remains, suggesting he may have succumbed to a severe case of the disease, perhaps complicated by his other health issues. The presence of a pharmacy of medicinal plants in the tomb, including juniper berries for pain relief and coriander seeds for fever reduction, suggests his health was a constant concern during his life. The discovery had profound effects beyond academia, sparking a global fascination with ancient Egypt that continues to this day. The 1920s saw Egyptomania sweep through Western fashion, architecture, and design. Egyptian motifs appeared in jewelry, furniture, and even cinema, while the Art Deco movement incorporated stylized versions of Egyptian patterns and forms. The Traveling Treasures of Tutankhamun exhibitions that began in the 1960s drew millions of visitors worldwide, creating new generations of Egyptology enthusiasts and reinforcing the pharaoh's status as a cultural icon. This widespread fascination ensured that funding and interest in Egyptian archaeology would continue for decades. The political dimensions of the discovery cannot be overlooked. The early 20th century saw growing Egyptian nationalism and resistance to British colonial rule. The removal of Tutankhamun's treasures by foreign archaeologists became a point of contention, contributing to debates about cultural patrimony and the ownership of antiquities. These discussions would eventually lead to changes in Egyptian law regarding archaeological finds and their export, setting precedents that would influence global policies on cultural heritage. Today, most of the treasures remain in Egypt, with many displayed in the Cairo Museum and destined for the new Grand Egyptian Museum, reflecting shifting attitudes toward cultural preservation and ownership. Technological advances continue to reveal new secrets about Tutankhamun and his world. Recent radar scans of the tomb walls have suggested the possible presence of hidden chambers, though follow-up investigations have proven inconclusive. DNA analysis of Tutankhamun and other royal mummies has clarified family relationships, confirming that he was the product of sibling marriage, a practice common in Egyptian royalty that may have contributed to his health problems. These ongoing investigations demonstrate how each generation brings new questions and technologies to the study of Tutankhamun, ensuring that his story continues to evolve and reveal new insights into the ancient world.
A century after Howard Carter first entered the tomb, the Curse of Tutankhamun continues to capture the global imagination, despite overwhelming scientific evidence debunking its supernatural elements. This enduring fascination speaks to deeper psychological and cultural needs that the curse narrative fulfills. Human beings are pattern-seeking creatures, and we are particularly drawn to narratives that connect seemingly unrelated events into coherent stories. The series of deaths following the tomb's opening presented a perfect pattern for the human mind to interpret, regardless of whether the connections were statistically valid. This cognitive tendency ensures that curse stories will always find receptive audiences, even in an age of scientific rationalism. The curse taps into universal human anxieties about death and the unknown. Ancient Egyptian culture was unusually focused on preparation for the afterlife, developing elaborate rituals and beliefs about what awaited beyond death. This cultural preoccupation with mortality resonates with our own deep-seated fears and curiosities about what happens after we die. The idea that the ancient Egyptians might have mastered forces beyond our understanding, whether through magic or science, appeals to our sense that past civilizations possessed lost knowledge that modern science cannot explain. This notion gives the curse story a compelling edge that pure fiction lacks. The story of Tutankhamun's curse also reflects changing attitudes toward colonialism and cultural appropriation. In the early 20th century, Western archaeologists routinely excavated and exported treasures from Egypt and other ancient lands with little consideration for local sensibilities or ownership. The curse narrative can be interpreted as a form of poetic justice, a symbolic resistance against this cultural appropriation. The fact that Egyptians were largely excluded from the curse's victims in popular accounts is telling. The supernatural retribution was directed specifically at the foreign interlopers who had violated the sacred space. This subtext gives the story a moral dimension that transcends simple superstition. The curse has demonstrated remarkable adaptability across different media and cultural contexts. Initially propagated by newspapers, the story was soon adapted into films, beginning with the 1932 horror film The Mummy, starring Boris Karloff. Throughout the 20th century, numerous movies, television shows, novels, and comic books incorporated elements of the curse, each adaptation reshaping it for new audiences. This cultural recycling has ensured that the curse remains in the public consciousness, detached from its historical origins and taking on new meanings in different contexts. The basic premise that disturbing ancient rest leads to supernatural consequences has proven to be an endlessly flexible narrative template. The commercialization of the Tutankhamun legend has also contributed to its longevity. From postage stamps to video games, the boy king's image and the curse associated with him have been commodified and distributed globally. Museum exhibitions featuring Tutankhamun's treasures rank among the most attended in history, with visitors drawn not just by historical interest, but by the allure of the curse story. This commercial dimension ensures that the legend is constantly reintroduced to new generations who may know little about the historical Tutankhamun, but recognize his name as synonymous with ancient mystery and supernatural danger. Psychologists suggest that belief in curses fulfills certain emotional needs, including the desire for justice in an often unfair world. The fact that wealthy, privileged individuals like Lord Carnarvon were the curse's primary victims provided a narrative of cosmic justice that appealed to many in less privileged circumstances. The curse represented a great equalizer. Money and status offered no protection against the pharaoh's wrath. This psychological dimension helps explain why curse stories remain compelling even to those who rationally reject supernatural explanations. They provide satisfying narratives in which arrogance toward ancient traditions receives appropriate punishment. The digital age has given the curse new life online, where it circulates independently of its historical context. Internet forums, YouTube videos, and social media platforms host endless discussions about the curse, often mixing factual information with speculation and fiction. Algorithmic content distribution tends to favor sensational stories, ensuring that the curse narrative reaches wide audiences with little incentive for critical examination. This digital afterlife demonstrates how ancient mysteries can find new resonance in modern technological contexts, transforming while maintaining their essential appeal. Ultimately, the curse of Tutankhamun endures because it represents the perfect storm of compelling elements: mysterious death, ancient civilization, media sensationalism, and psychological resonance. It connects the distant past with the present in a dramatic narrative that feels both historically grounded and mysteriously supernatural. While science has provided rational explanations for the individual elements of the story, the complete narrative continues to captivate because it speaks to fundamental human curiosities about death, the past, and the unknown. The curse may not be real in the supernatural sense, but its power as a story is undeniable, ensuring that Tutankhamun will continue to fascinate us for centuries to come.